Well, it's time now for a look at what today's international newspapers are saying with our press reviewer, who joins me now, Nicholas Rushworth.
Hi, Lorna.
Right, so you're going to start off with that epic, well, not quite epic yet, but I imagine it is going to be epic, EU budget battle.
Well, I'm going to go straight to Süddeutsche Zeitung. The Germans are the powerhouse these days in Europe and in the EU. And it's headlining EU budget negotiations deadlocked. Angela Merkel expects failure of the Brussels billion-euro poker summit. So, of course, the EU 7-year budget is on the line here. Leaders are speaking of deep divisions and, surprise, surprise, Lorna, there is little hope of an agreement.
Indeed, that's what many people seem to be saying this morning. Meanwhile, you've turned to a publication based in Brussels itself, where those negotiations are happening, to see its editorial sort of from the front line, so to speak.
Well, the Economist Group has a paper in Brussels called The European Voice, which sort of captures the feel of what is in the minds of Eurocrats. And there you can see the headline in the editorial of The European Voice today: there should be reforms as well as cuts. Now, it's stating the core-blindingly obvious that each country goes to these talks with their national interests in front of their minds. Now, the Eurocrats themselves obviously find themselves in deep trouble. They're the friend of nobody because countries are looking for ways to cut. Now, the paper there in that editorial, The European Voice, is saying there should actually be a symbolic cut to the admin budget and the streamlining of working procedures for these kind of summits and negotiations. For example, the auditor's accounts should be presented much more, much earlier. The whole working procedure has to be revamped so that, in fact, we can avoid these kind of ridiculous scenarios where the European leaders gather around the table for a few hours and try to fix something. The paper is saying that, in fact, it would improve business and would be good for everyone all around.
Well, talking of Eurocrats, they're somewhat in the line of fire from the British Prime Minister, David Cameron. He's in the news with these negotiations because he's determined to get what he calls a fair deal for the UK.
Well, in the British press, he's attacking all the 40,000 staff in the bureaucracy in Brussels. That's very much target number one for the Conservative Brits. Now, all Conservative Prime Ministers have a bash at Brussels at some point, and this is picked up by the Daily Telegraph in its cartoon today, which is showing the consequences of that, which is, again, Britain is not really round the table, is it? And what you can see in that picture is David Cameron waving his papers saying, I want my money back, that kind of British Thatcher obsession. And what we've got is, in fact, the table is just pushed outside the glass of the building, and he's hanging precariously off. If you look closely, you can see, well, maybe he will actually fall into the street and disappear, and the 26 others will be probably a bit grateful about that. Now, to contrast that for journalistic balance, I wanted to look at The Guardian, which is the main left-wing paper in the UK, and not that much coverage, but it is asking a question. There you can see, is Britain's EU rebate outdated? The Brits are used to getting their 3.6 billion back. Now, that piece is, in fact, a survey, and The Guardian readers click onto the page online, and they decide 46% of The Guardian readership, Lorna, I don't know if this surprises you, but they're saying, well, it is out of date. Let's not bother with it. But the others are saying, yes, we want our money.
Unsurprisingly, yes.
Yeah, well, I found that quite interesting because people are split. It's not such a major issue. And the Guardian there was arguing, well, farmer subsidies have shrunk. It's not like the old days, and the British economy is better. We can handle the cost a bit more.
Oh, it'll be interesting to see whether anything is done about that. But we're going to move on now very briefly to the Middle East. Mohammed Morsi has given himself sweeping powers.
Well, he does so and has been called the Pharaoh in much of the press today. This cartoon in the International Herald Tribune shows him rising in power. There you can see shaking hands with Obama. And what we've got also is an analysis in the Egypt Independent, which is saying that if now he's moving the Egypt Independent, if Morsi now is moving, it's really because he has, in a sense, the green light from Washington to actually go ahead with what he needs to do about domestic dissent, because Washington is really seeing him as the key tool in the Israel-Palestinian process.
OK, well, thank you very much indeed, Nicholas, for that roundup of some of the interesting stories in today's international newspapers.